Hello, everybody. It's Alan Barry Labucan here from the Rocks and Stocks News website. We got a special guest in Tim Froude. Tim and his company Sokoman been a real early mover into the exciting new one of the key gold exploration camps in Canada, Newfoundland. Lots going on out there. Tim's been there for a long time. He lives close to where his project is, just off the highway, the Moosehead project. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about their new flavor, which is they've got some lithium news. Tim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Alan. It's always great to get on here with you. And yeah, I mean, look, when you go exploring, sometimes you trip up over stuff that you say, maybe we should throw a little bit of this into the bag and see what we get out of it. And pretty much that's what happened at Golden Hope. You correctly identified, obviously our flagship as being the Moosehead project, but we are still an exploration company. We don't go in the bush with blinders on. We all remember a story, I think, about a company called Diamond Fields and how that ended up for everybody. I think a lot of people ended up pretty happy with what turned out of that. But
just to touch on that a little bit, Tim, it goes back to old-fashioned, looking around at what's under your feet. Well, in the case of Diamond Fields, they were looking for diamonds, and the geologists were flying in a helicopter, and they saw some rusty-colored rock, and they, against the orders of the company management, they were supposed to just be getting home. They instead landed, took some samples, and the rest is history. They found Voisey's Bay. It was a $4 billion takeout. So that old-fashioned geology of walking around and breaking some rocks, Tim, has led you guys to find some lithium. And lithium is one of the hottest things out there right now in the commodity space. The demand is super strong. The supply is not reacting as quickly as needed, and the price has gone up dramatically, and it looks to keep going up. So give us a little bit of more details about your lithium rock kicking.
well, as I mentioned, Golden Hope was staked initially because of two very important structural trends that cross through that portion of Newfoundland. The Cape Ray, Marathon, Moosehead system, as well as one that we've kind of all forgotten about for a while, and that's the Hope Brook trend, which, Hope Brook was Newfoundland's really first foray into, the gold mining scene. It came about as a discovery in the mid 80s and produced just under 1 million ounces of gold. So a lot of people probably don't even remember it or even know about Hope Brook, but we were able to acquire through staking, Benton and ourselves, this is a JV property, a very substantial, 750 square kilometers, over 3,000 claims, basically tying up significant strike extensions of those two key structures. So anyway, in the process of evaluating our project for gold, and again, I'll say, we're still an exploration company, we're prospectors at heart. We happened upon some pegmatites that looked rather interesting. So we took a couple of grab samples just to see what was in them. And sure enough, they came back, and I think our first news release indicated, I think, up to 1.9% Li2O. Now, caution, these are very early days. These are still just exploration, grab sample, in some cases, chip sample results. So we went back in a couple of weeks later and collected about, I think, 58 samples, of which 35 were released last week. And yeah, this is turning out to be something quite interesting. We've got now samples.
Were those 58 samples from outcropping rock, or what kind of samples were taken on those 58?
Yeah, the bulk of them are in situ bedrock samples, Alan. A lot of them are grab samples. There were, I think, a series of 4 samples that were collected at the main discovery showing that were essentially 50 centimeter, half meter sort of panel samples. You're just basically gathering up rock. It's not a selected, it's not a it's not a channel sample, but it's better than a grab sample in terms of what it's going to tell you. It's more of a representative sample, and 4 of those samples all came back, I think, a 1.5% up to 2.3% Li2O. So yeah, we basically verified a probably the first ever, bona fide high grade lithium, any lithium for that matter, occurrence in the province. So again, it's still early days. What we know is that the system seems to be approximately, based on visuals. We can only go with what we see exposed, because this is a brand new area. There's no infrastructure here at all. There's no, we're not in a brownfields area. It's a grassroots discovery. Approximately 100 meters, maybe 110 meters across strike. Looks like to be multiple dikes. It's probably not just one continuous thickness of 100 meters. And up to a couple of 100 meters, perhaps as much as 300 meters verified so far in terms of strike length. So it's looking pretty interesting. We've obviously very, very early days, but we're very happy with the results. These are what would be considered, I guess, high grade with respect to lithium.
Absolutely.
I know there are projects in Ontario that are pretty well at feasibility or pre-feasibility stage, or at least advanced projects that have, and I'm looking at grades anywhere from 1% to 2%. So we're in the ballpark with these things. There's still a lot we need to learn about this system in terms of its actual chemistry. I understand that that's a very important part of the process with respect to lithium, how much iron is in it, et cetera, and other metals. So, but we'll get there. In the meantime, the focus is still gold at Golden Hope. We just got the data. Again, everything is backed up, not just the labs. Even the geophysical companies are bogged down trying to get deliverables back to their clients. So we're now just getting that material back, and we're going to basically piece it together with the historical data.
Gold, Tim,
sorry.
So it's the lithium rock is poking its head out for a little bit there, a couple 100 meters by whatever side to side. You guys don't have any government geophysical data to give you any indication of what it looks like as you go deeper, I would imagine, or no?
Typically, government airborne surveys are kind of coarse in their line spacing. So to look for subtle structures, you really need to sharpen it up, tighten up the line spacing a bit. And we have covered this area with a recent airborne MAG VLF survey, EM survey. So we should be able to see stuff now that we know what to look for. Basically, if we're wondering what this little funny thing is over here, oh, maybe that's the pegmatites that we're seeing over here in the mag low, because these things are generally not magnetic. So if your host rocks are magnetic at all, you should see some sort of a signature there. So, but in terms of other data, yes, there is government geochem in the area that suggests down ice, basically from where the source is to where the glaciers were trending. There is some down ice dispersal in lithium. So
good.
That's good support there, as well as we staked an additional a couple of blocks of claims further to the west, 20 to 30 kilometers further to the west, that have a large number of actually pretty robust gold in lake sediment values. A lot of them are between 50 and 100 ppm lithium, which and again, I'm still kind of learning this curve. Are quite anomalous. So there could be other.
Is the steps forward to get some tighter space geophysical work done to prepare for drilling? Is that sort of the game plan going forward?
Well, we have the data now, so we'll pick it apart. We've got a couple of directors that are quite good at piecing together and unraveling the mysteries of geophysics. So we'll piece it together. We'll marry it with any and all available data, not just the gold now. I mean, now clearly we need to look at this project in terms of its potential benefits for our shareholders in terms of what this lithium angle could suddenly bring to us. And again, we're not suddenly going to become a lithium company, but we do owe it to our shareholders to obviously evaluate any and all opportunities that may come our way, whether it be through discovery of a new and different type of mineral occurrence on the property, and if there's going to be any interest from third parties who may want to run with this project. We understand there is, some consolidation going on with respect to lithium. Certainly a lot of partnerships being formed. So we won't stray from our focus of gold, Alan, but we will also not, let an
You're not
opportunity
going to
go
ignore
by.
something that you kick over. And, speaking of that, Tim, I've always, been a fan of the people you have around you. And in the Benton group there, you've got the Stairs family that, is kind of renowned for their prospecting talents, and PDAC Prospector of the Years kind of guys. So you got some good guys to kick rocks with.
Oh, absolutely. No, and indeed, the discovery was made with Steve Stairs and his brother Michael, who's very big. He's very fond of rare earths and lithium. In fact, his couple of his companies that he's involved with are focused specifically on that. And of course, our consultant Sean O'Brien, from the former Newfoundland government geologist, who spent considerable time down there and is helping us unlock the mysteries of the geology down there. So yeah. Like I said, we have a great team, a great joint venture relationship with Benton, and we've already seen it already is bearing fruit. So
next time you talk to Steve, tell him I said hello.
I'll certainly do that.
Okay.
Alan, thank you.
All right. So now let's get on to our big stuff, which is your Moosehead project. You're looking for an orogenic style of mineralization, similar to what they're the Swan Zone at Fosterville in Australia, that really put Kirkland Lake on the map of big producers, high grade, high margin gold found in veins. And these aren't easy to find. You've got complex faulting often, and if you look at it, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. If you look at the Swan Zone and the areas above it, and where you got the high grade mineralization. And one thing I always noticed about or said about you guys is that when they figure out this system, it's not going to take long to start adding a lot of ounces. And one of the things that you came up with recently is that you put news out about your barge drilling. And I get the sense from talking to you that this could be the effort that helps unlock that puzzle. Have I read you correctly, Tim?
Yes, you're a very astute student of the game, Alan. I have to give you a lot of credit. You're absolutely right. No, Moosehead is certainly, a Fosterville lookalike in terms of the geological setting. And I've mentioned this in several public appearances where, the setting is right, the rocks are right, the structure is right, the chemistry is right, the style of mineralization is right for a Fosterville. And even
the
people
gold
who
you've already found in your holes is right.
Yes, exactly. So the barge is going to be a very important mover for us going forward, Alan. It will be basically testing an area that, because of a small body of water, we have this very large gap or hole in our mineralized sort of model for Moosehead. And because we're able to drill around one side of the pond and drill around the other side of the pond, but the zone is actually underneath this pond. Now it's not a huge body of water. It's only a few meters deep. It's only a few hundred meters wide and probably 400 or 500 meters in length. But it is a little bit of a deterrent in terms of building out this thing as best we can. And couple that with the fact that a lot of our highest grade and best intersections come right on the edges around where we can't drill anymore because of the water. So we have had a couple of very short campaigns.
On the south west side of the lake? Is that, I'm going off my memory looking at one of your presentations.
Yeah. Basically, it ends. It kind of trims the west side of North Pond and kind of extends in under the southern end of the pond and appears to be trending down towards where we've also gotten quite a bit of success at the 75 zone, which has been a newsmaker for us lately, and of course South Pond.
What's the distance from those two ponds?
It's about 200 meters between them collectively, but the overall length of the zone of mineralization is probably more in the 400 to 500 meter range, and still open, Alan, because of the fact that we can't extend it any further to the north, because it is along that edge where we just can't test it anymore.
And folks, just for your knowledge, if you look at the footprint of the Swan Zone, you're not talking about a large area of intense high grade. So you could certainly fit a Swan Zone in that area. That's why the nature of my questions, Tim.
Oh, without question, yeah. I mean, my understanding, and unless things have changed there in recent months with respect to the size of the Swan Zone, I've read publications whereby it's 50 to 75 meters in strike length, 4 to 15 meters in thickness, but it's the down plunge. And these are the mysteries that you need to unlock, are the plunges of these things. And they're not always consistent. You can drill a fence of holes across and say, oh my God, I missed it with the two holes, to the left and to the right. That's because it's either dipping below one of your holes or above one of your holes. You just need to figure all that stuff out. So, it's trial and error. You will have to drill some holes that don't tell you, well, every hole tells you something, but they all don't give you, the reward at the end of the day that you're hoping to get, but they're all important. So we've got a minimum of 5,000 meters planned from the barge, upwards of 10,000 meters. That's about the most that we can, fit into this window that we have there. But we expect, that based on what we know from our drilling to date, that there should be, or could be, depending on what word you want to use, a lot of low-hanging fruit there. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of our highest grade.
That's the term you used that got me thinking, this could be what unlocks this whole mystery. You're talking about low-hanging fruit. I forgot what it was that clicked on me for that, Tim.
Yeah, because most of the holes, Alan, that we've got proposed for this barge-based program are only about 100 meters in total depth. And within that, we're expecting, in a number of cases, depending on the geometry and the angles, of course, to hit not just one zone of mineralization, but two. And that would be the high-grade upper portion of the main eastern trend, as well as what we call the footwall splay. And the footwall splay came about earlier this year with hole 115, which cut two zones. I think it was 4.6 meters of about 47 grams, and I think 8 meters of 68 grams, in the footwall splay and the main eastern trend zone, respectively. So we're now going to be able to test that a lot more effectively, that target zone anyway, a lot more effectively from the barge, and with many more holes. So unless the thing gets cut off by later structure, which can happen, we're expecting some pretty good success with this barge-based program, and again, infilling a large hole that currently exists in our eastern trend mineralized model.
And one thing that is a little bit different between the Swan Zone and what's happening out in Newfoundland is that it looks like that juiciest part of the system is closer to surface. So maybe there's been erosion that, the first 20 years of Fosterville was in that at the extension, and it took them mining through that to then target the Swan Zone. It looks like you guys are, well, a lot of the talk I hear from the Newfoundland projects looking for orogenic is it looks like the heart of that system is closer to surface.
Exactly, and whether it's through to erosion or just structural uplift in general, maybe we've had some later movement on faults post-mineral that have pushed a lot of this stuff up much closer to surface for us, because as we know, the Swan Zone, is I think about 1,000 or 1,200 meters, down, below surface, and we're getting, Swan Zone type grades less than 100 meters from surface. So, you hate to think that you've had 1,000 meters of erosion, but maybe it's just all been structurally, replaced or remobilized in terms of, maybe now it's all been sort of brought together a little closer to surface. And lucky for us, sits where it currently does, except for the pond, which is, a little bit of a, yeah.
Yeah, but a barge fixes that problem, and now you
Yes.
can, because you can now go in there with tighter spacing, and that's probably what took a long time for Swan to be discovered, was when you're drilling down 1,000 to 1,200 meters, it's not easy to poke a good tight drilling into that area, which probably would have led to figuring it out a lot sooner. If you can tighten up that drilling so you can vector in on maybe where a Swan zone is undercover there.
Well, and as well, with respect to Moosehead, the dip of the mineralization is such that you can really only drill it true thickness from the water. Otherwise, you're drilling it down dip. You could miss it underneath. You could miss it above. So, especially if the thing isn't, and these things are never straight lines. I mean, there's always, some different shapes to them or whatever. So, you always run the risk of missing it. And we know now we've missed the zone because of those features in the past, based on
Probably
that
the
we can see.
drilling from the north side when you were.
Now we need to be, yeah, so exactly. So, and this will also give us some more true thicknesses as well, as opposed to elongated, apparent thicknesses that are exaggerated because you're drilling down dip. So, and as well, because it's so close to surface, we know that 100 meters should get us through both of those zones. Now, we may run a few of those holes a little deeper just to see if there's any more surprises down there, because we're finding lots of surprises on this property. And again, we've learned a lot, but I think there's still a lot to learn here.
I imagine if the alteration continues beyond that 100 meters or so, you'll keep going to see if you can get a nice surprise.
For sure, Alan. Yes, you got it.
Okay. Okay. And one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, Tim, is pending news. You guys probably have a lot in the lab or waiting on a lot. Where do we stand on that sort of stuff?
We do, and we expect a couple of news releases on results from Moosehead, as well as the first set of results from Fleur de Lis. The TIL program is phase 1 is about 80% complete there. The results are starting to trickle in, and so we're very happy to be able to provide some news on that in the next week or so. But we should also have news in the next week or so in terms of assays from Moosehead as well. So I know people are looking forward to that. We're anxious to to see what the final batch of results will look like. But we have been assured that we should be able to produce a meaningful news release with a bunch of holes in the next week or so.
Good. Well, we're going to have to talk again after that, Tim. Yeah, Moosehead is. When did you make that discovery? I've been following it closely since you made that discovery. I'm a big fan of high grade gold, Tim, and I know the challenges that it brings, but the rewards are worth those challenges if the truth machine keeps pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, well, the first hole was drilled in late summer of 2018, and of course we just had a very modest start with a very modest treasury at that time. But since 2019, yeah, it's been a very active time for us. We've got now just over 50,000 meters in total drilled ourselves, about 250 holes, and that sounds like a lot, but when you factor that out over a couple of kilometers of strike length with 5 zones you're trying to expand on, we still have a lot more work to do. We're getting there, and we don't intend to stop at the end of the 50,000 meter phase 6. That's just going to be a little break for us sometime over the winter, part of the winter. Maybe we'll have to recharge, but yeah, we're not slowing down, not at all.
Well, you brought up a couple things there, Tim. One is that you know, that's the nature of these orogenic systems too. They're deep, and you know, they're usually not one isolated vein that, you know, is mineralized. So you've got a lot of indications there that you could find more than one potential swan zone type target, if you will.
Well, absolutely. You know, I think we're well beyond the point of this thing being just a small isolated occurrence, which is probably what a lot of people had this project written off to before we acquired it. It's now a property of merit, clearly, and one that I think has a lot more to offer and reveal yet. Again, you know, we just started testing some of our regional targets, and you know, news will be coming forth on that as well. Some interesting developments there on that front. So it's going to be a busy fall. Like I mentioned to you earlier, you know, we've got other projects that need some addressing, and I'm kind of running around putting out small fires here and there in terms of getting things done on some of those others. And yeah, you will be hearing more from Fleur de Lis, from Golden Hope, Grey River, Keppenkek, and obviously Moosehead in the coming weeks. And we appreciate everybody's patience with respect to assay news, but it is what it is. We're all dealing with it down here. So
Well,
yeah.
you can be waiting on assay results on a iffy project, or you can be waiting on assay results for someone who's looking for a swan zone type target. I don't have a lot of problem waiting for those kind of things. And at Moosehead, if I'm correct, there's a regional or there's a fault that goes sort of through the middle of or to the side of the pond, and from the north end down to the south end. And these are important for, you know, multiple sets of mineralization, and why you found all these targets. Is that correct, Tim?
Yeah, well, we sit essentially on the same structure that hosts Matador Mining's Cape Ray project. Further to the north along strike on that same structure, you've got Marathon with their Valentine Lake, you know, 4 to 5 million ounces there. They're probably going to be turning sod there on the mine, hopefully in the next 12 months. And Moosehead sits on that, the northern extension of that same feature. And it seems like at Moosehead, there's been a fanning out or a feathering out or a horsetails, if you will, off of a main structure that has fed a number of subparallel and interlocking structures. Some of them are, you know, east dipping. Some of them are north dip, you know, vertical structures. And some are linking structures. So everything we need to see to identify potentially, you know, a significant, you know, zone of gold mineralization that our shareholders will be proud to say they're part of owning. So
What you just described there is kind of like what I see at depth at the Swan Zone, you know, multiple structures, but that big crustal structure is also really important, because that helps tap deep, which is where these orogenic deposits come from. Then they come up and kind of spread out when they get into that faulting you talked about there, Tim.
yeah, that you know, it seems like when you get close to surface, the thrust basically unlocks, you know, because of all the overpressure that's now suddenly reduced, and just makes this whole fan or feathering of multiple subparallel, like a braided stream sort of thing, pattern. And not all of them will be mineralized. Some will be, some won't. Then again, you get later structural complications that can jiggle some things around. Sometimes it helps you, sometimes it hurts you. But yeah, there's like I said, there's no question now that Moosehead has kind of risen to the level of you know, a project that, you know, we need to do more work on, clearly, and we intend to do.
Tim, I don't need to tell you, but I think I want to tell the audience. Every time I hear more about this project, it all points me back to the Swan Zone and Fosterville. You know, you've got that regional fault. You've got this, you know, where the rocks are all being prepared. It can add complexity, but it also opens up the window for the juices to flow in there and find one of those lenses that are hugely profitable. And, you know, it's one thing to talk about that in a structural sense, But even more importantly, you found that indications that that's happening with the truth machine in your drilling, that you've hit lots of high grade gold. So you know that there's some mineralizing system there, and it's coming into one of these classic areas that are similar to Swan Zone.
Well said, Alan. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Sometimes I have to wear my explorationist hat too, Tim.
There you go.
Well, I'm a big fan of this project, and I really think that I get the sense that this barge is going to lead you to a lot of good stuff, Tim. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed for you guys, and I hope that this barge drilling really opens this thing up wide open.
Thank you, Alan. And yeah, certainly lots of things to look forward to in the coming months. Thank you.
Well, as you get more news, Tim, we're definitely going to talk some more. So I'm going to let you go. I'm going to close it off. Thanks again for, being a sponsor of my website. It helps me to put content together. And I think that this is the kind of content that investors need to hear. It's one thing to sort of have a canned presentation of your slide deck there, but I've been at the exploration game since 1993, so I think I ask a few questions that the regular folks out there don't, and I think it's good stuff to have. And Tim, you're always a great guy to talk to about this stuff. I could talk to you for hours about what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Alan, and yeah, stay tuned.
Okay. All right, Tim, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Sokoman is a sponsor of the website. They help me to be able to do the work that I do. I only invite companies to be sponsors that I believe strongly in what they're doing. Moosehead is a tremendously exciting project for all the reasons that Tim and I just talked about. It's not just some, House Street or Bay Street stock promotion talk about a Swan Zone lookalike. They've got the key, they've got the deep structural fault. They've got this secondary faulting that opens up the rock for the gold to get up near the surface. And they've drilled and they've found lots of high grade gold, and now they're doing the barge drilling. I think it's going to unlock everything. So they still have a very modest valuation compared to some of their peers that are looking for orogenic type deposits. And I invite you to do your homework. Check out their website. They do a lot of great stuff in their news releases, their corporate presentations. All that stuff is a great place for you to do your homework. As always, this show is for information purposes only, and it's important for you to do that homework and speak to your financial advisors before making any investment decisions. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey, Tim.
Great, thank you, Alan.
Excellent, man.
Okay.
I get more jacked up every time I talk to you about what's going on, man.
Thank you. Well, I'd love to chat a bit more, but I've got another one in 4 minutes. So
okay,
we'll
go
care.
do it. Well, I'll be in touch.
Get Irina to send you a picture of the barge.
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter.
Okay, yeah, get her to send it to you if you need it for anything else.
Yeah. I'll get it on my website photos. Perfect. Thanks, Tim.
Okay.
Go
Thanks,
do your
Alan.
other one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.